Right, so there's a few more bits we need to do to this car before it goes off on its long journey for mapping. You need to make sure the car's 100%. You should always make sure, check everything over. So the first thing we're going to do, the postman's come through, and I didn't realise we was going to be doing this vid, but the postman's come through and we have some new plugs, we've got new injectors, new clutch cable, which is not going to be fitting, just need that in the car because I don't know if you know, if you've owned these cars, the clutch cables are prone of snapping, leaving you in a very vulnerable position on the side of the road, and on long journey you don't want that, so we're taking a spare one with us. As we are running green injectors at the minute, these are good for about 330 horsepower on the Cosy. On a 1600 CVH they will max out around 260, 270 horsepower depending on fuel pressure. So what we're taking with us instead is a set of light blues, which is in between greys. So on the Cosworth, the injector scale goes blues and yellows, which is the stock injector on the Cosworth. And then the uprated injectors are greens. They will stage free your car. Then you go light blues, which will go up to about 380, 400 horsepower. Anything over 400 horsepower on the Cosy needs greys. Greys are a bit extreme on this engine. There's no need for them, so we're not going to go with that. So essential number one is, as I say, a new clutch cable. You always got to have a spare clutch cable. Been up Southend Seafront before, back in like 2006, 2007, upside down, taking the driver's seat out, trying to get a clutch cable on. Absolute nightmares. So the other side of it, we have, these are the injectors, the new injectors we've got. So I haven't even opened these yet. These have been refurbished, fully refurbed, rebuilt, all cleaned. So these are light blues, so the next stage up from green, so they're going to allow a bit more flow. So in like there's Vauxhall terms, this is a 430cc injector at 3.5 bar, and the greens are a 380cc injector at 3.5 bar. So you can tell that we've got a nice bit of fueling. Can never go over the top with fueling. The only issue is the nozzle on these cars is not like a modern nozzle. They're quite a poor spray design. I'll open one for you quickly. So you can see there you've got a single nozzle design. It's not the best design for atomisation. You need to run decent fuel pressure, and then when you go up to greys they get even worse because they start drizzling out of here. So make sure that you get these cleaned on an old Cosy engine, as opposed to say a modern injector that the Z20 lets use. These are obviously Decker ones. You can see just about seeing there, they're a multi-hole design, so they're going to allow for much better atomisation of fuel. Same with the ID injectors as well, and then you can see as well the design, the size of them. So that's a 630cc injector, that's a 430cc injector, so you can see how modern day design, everything is better. So of course you can't just fit these injectors straight in as a straight swap, so you have to use a Cosworth fitting kit. So you can see you've got the different end caps here to replace these caps. I normally cut the ends off as well for better fueling, because you can see that's got more of an open end design on it to let the fuel out. With the Cosy cap you've got a single nozzle design, so you need to cut the top of that off. We've got new seals, got a load of packs of these are straight from Bosch. And these are the plugs that we're running on the car. I like to run these Denzos. These ain't cheap plugs, but they're the best. So I normally gap these to around 0.6 of a millimetre, because the problem is with the old spark systems, even though we have a wasted spark system with twin ignition amplifiers for extra power of spark, they still haven't got the spark capability of, say, the Z20 Let coil pack. So we gap these down to 0.6 so they don't blow out on boost. On the Z20 Let we can open them up or leave them open at a 0.8. So on any spark system, the bigger that you can have this gap, the better the fuel burn. But the problem is on a boosted application, you can blow that out with too much boost when you ain't got a strong enough spark. These are a platinum design as opposed to iridiums that I normally run. So let's get these gapped up and pop back in the car. So when I'm gapping plugs, I just use the old school way of a set of feeler gauges and just measure between the electrode. So the ignition leads that we use on this car from a Cosworth, but the ends have been converted to a dieselless ignition system because a Cosworth runs on a distributor cap, so it's a completely different design. You can see how long they are because they're not like Fiesta turbo leads, they're proper motorsport lead. So let's get these plugs out. They should all been burning fine, because the fueling's been pretty good recently. Since we, so you can tell that I didn't have to proper go at them to break them off, because that's how you should be doing up plugs. Either torque them up or just do them up gently. It's the problem with the Z20 lets, they crack between cylinders. You can see a little bit rich, but not too bad. And they crack between cylinders on the Z20 let. People over torque these spark plugs and it cracks between the valve seat and the spark plug threads. And it's basically down to just poor maintenance. If you find one without cracks in the head, look after it. Right, so let's get these fresh ones back in, all gapped up. Lovely fresh set of spark plugs, can't beat them. So the old one's exactly the same plug, just a nice fresh set. So the spark plug torque on these is 27 Newton meters, which is around 20 foot-pounds. They've got loads of meat in these spark plug gaps, so they won't crack like a Z20 let will, but it's better to do them to the proper specs. You're not going to have an issue then. Job done. Let's get the leads back on. Right, let's move on to the next job. So one thing I want to do now is upgrade this wiring. So you see, this is proper wiring. This is the wiring thickness that I'm going to be going with, 14 AWG. But the one that comes off the Cosy loom itself, as you can see there, is far thinner, and that goes straight up to the relay up here. So, and then goes to the battery. You see there's two joiners in there, and it goes to this fuel pump relay here, which I've labelled up. You can see it goes directly into the back of the fuel pump relay. I've already pulled it out. You can see the spade connector, because I'm going to go straight from this relay all the way to the fuel pump, just so I can show you how it works. You can hear when I put it to a positive, you can hear the fuel pump priming. So that's how it works. This is the fuel pump relay. So I'm going to run the wire now all the way through here, all the way directly to the pump, and that way we've got perfect voltage at any revs, so we're never going to run out of fuel. So I just pulled out the wiring from that goes all the way to the pump, because we're going to run a direct feed in there now. You can see the thickness of the wiring difference, so we're going to have a much better voltage, so we ain't going to have no current spikes or loss of voltage on the rollers. And you can see we don't have to join it now into the existing wiring. So the wiring's finished off now. It's nothing exciting to see. The fuel pump wire now runs straight from the loom, all the way from the AML valve and all the way from the idle control valve, runs along the wing, hidden down there, all the way down to the fuel pump. Right, so the wiring's finished for the fuel pump. It runs all the way from the loom now. You can see it's directly into the loom, into the main relay. Runs along the inner wing, runs up here, and it goes down into the fuel pump now. And as you can see, we took the earth out of the fuel pump, and I've run that under the car. Late night job. Right, so we needed to get this wiring done. That's why I couldn't show you the process. But what I've done now is I've shortened the earth cable from about 4 foot or 5 foot, whatever it was before, to 18 inches and bolted it to the wheel well now. And you've got a nice fresh connection on there for the earth, and that's going to give us a much better voltage reading across the range for the fuel pump now. Now we're running 14 AWG wire instead of like the factory tiny wires that come on it. So this is when it starts getting serious. Got more questions in here than I remember from when I go to school. So a quick spec list that we need to go over. There's a lot more to it than this, but these are the questions that they wanted answered. So we are now going to sign a disclaimer that tells them if the car blows up, it's not their fault, which is obvious. Any sort of mapping session, you should never blame the mapper. I think it's a bad move to do. You're taking the risk. You're using them to benefit you, make your car how you want it. If it breaks, it's not always their fault. So many people blame the mapper. So I'm in the process at the minute of sorting out a new bumper for the car because the old one was a bit tatty. You can see that one that was there. I've got a couple of different bumpers that I've bought. They're quite hard to get hold of now, the prodrive bumpers. This one I've just put into primer and I'm working out. I've got to mock up a few bits because the intercooler pipework hits, you can see down here, hits in where the fog lights go. So I've got to work out what I'm going to do there because I don't really want to be chopping them out as much as I did on this one and putting plates across it because I'm going to just want to go for a little bit more of a change. So you can see at the minute, I'm just in the process of putting on the side strips. So I just started with the rear one. So now that's a good old Tiger Seal getting that one on. I've just got to do a little bit of an adjustment to that one and then I can get the other two on around this side. So yeah, we're just getting this one back together. So this one had the original fog lights and it's actually got the original grille as well, which looks terrible. That won't be going on. But yeah, trying to get hold of prodrive bumpers at the minute are far harder than getting hold of the OPC GSI ones. But yeah, so I've managed to find two good ones that I can work with. So I'm going to get back to trimming this up. If you ever get your prodrive bumpers, make sure they're not cracked along here. They always crack along this part here. So that's trimmed down and the aim is to try and get this trimmed so it still looks OE. I don't want that back plate on the back of the fog light anyway that sits here, so that's all been cut out. You can see the difference, but I just want to keep the shape of the fog light so it's like the modern cars and then they just have the grille at the back. I'm either going to put brake ducts in there or a plate, I ain't decided yet. So I've been trimming the bumper and it's fitting a ton better already. You can see it now clears the boost pipe nicely. So I'm going to trim it so it's like an OE fitment. I'm going to have to finish off now because I've got another car coming in. So while I was doing this inlet manifold gasket on this Astra Gsi, it's got a vacuum leak coming between the head and the manifold gasket. I thought I'd show you the difference between the wire tucked engine bay because I haven't had a car in with all the battery, the ECU and all the wiring. You can see all the stuff that I've got rid of on my car. So that's a good comparison between that and all that gone. For people that haven't seen it before, people ain't into Vauxhalls. So I just pulled the inlet off, had a little look around. I think that's the issue there, where the gasket is blown out. Either that or the old gasket hasn't been removed. So I'm going to move the gasket out of the way, see what's going on. Right, so this looks like it's the issue. So if you look here closely, there's two gaskets together. So they've either not told the old gasket off or decided to use two gaskets thinking it would be better than one. You can see one of them's blown out. Never do this. I don't know why you would. It's funny because this car, when it come to me, it didn't have no O-rings in the throttle body at the bottom part or the top part. They had no gasket in them at all. So I had to replace them as well. So whoever worked on this last is a bit a noob when it comes to gaskets. So a lot of people say that the Z-lets are unreliable, but I think it's the people that work on them that make them unreliable. This sort of stuff is ridiculous, having, you know, bodges like this. I don't know why you would ever do it. You can see there, clearly there's two gaskets there. So stuff like that's bound to cause you problems with vacuum leaks. As you see there, that bottom part had blown out. Chinky type hoses that you get with a lot of the kits these days. So just uprate them to a good 5-ply silicone hose so you won't have that issue, especially like a Samco version. So boost leak checks are critical with these cars. Any boosted cars, you want to make sure there's absolutely no vacuum leaks and no boost leaks. So just gone done the inlet manifold gasket, and you can see here now there's absolutely no noise, no leaks from anywhere, and you can see that the system is still pressurized. You can see through the vac climbs, so you can hear it coming out there, so you absolutely know there's no leaks coming from the car now. So all that boost is going to be going into the engine, making maximum power. So when a car's been running for a long time with a boost leak or a vacuum leak or anything, the fuel trim on the ECU changes and it stores it inside the ECU. So it's a really good thing after you've done any mods to rectify any problems, to unplug the ECU and let the ECU forget its memory, and it basically resets it back to factory how it was mapped, and you have all the boost that you need and all the fueling you need.